Hey, good Friday morning, everybody. BAM Weather Meteorologist Brett Waltz here, giving you a long-range forecast update, guys. I hope y'all are doing well this morning. Let's get right into it, and I want to start out with all of the record-breaking cold that we've continued to have over the past 24 hours. All those blue dots with the white outlines that you see are locations that broke their daily record low. You can see a lot of them across the central and south central United States this morning. That carries over from yesterday morning. There were a lot of record-breaking lows yesterday morning as well. If we look at the actual temperatures right now, guys, actually this is as of about 7:30 a.m. this morning, so the low temperatures last night. Click around, you can see the coldest air in the country across eastern parts of Nebraska, western Iowa, down into the negative teens, below zero, all the way into Missouri, into parts of Kentucky where there's a snowpack in place. You can see single digits down into the Ohio Valley as well. Again, some of the coldest air pretty far south right now. Up in Wisconsin, a couple of cold spots as well. And we take a look further down to the south. Take a look at this. We've got temperatures down into the single digits into northern Texas, Dallas metro area in the 20s this morning, into the 30s down into the Houston metro area. So continuing to be a very cold start to your day. We take a look at the current setup, guys. We have some snow showers and flurries across the northeastern tier of the United States. Weak little system here in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, a couple of flurries down into parts of Texas even this morning, but this is the start of what will be a quieter pattern as we work over the next 7 days, guys. I really don't have any major storm systems that we're tracking in the cards, at least for the time being. And part of that is because of where the cold is going. We take a look at the temperature setup over the next 5 days. It's still colder than normal, but note where the cold is going. It's working south into the east. We're starting to transition into what we call the MJO Phase 8 forcing, which is going to favor warmth to the west and colder air to the east. And with time, we should actually see some of this warmer air bleed in to parts of the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. It will feel a lot more like spring to end the month of February, certainly compared to where we have been throughout this week. Temperatures surging to as much as 10 degrees above normal across parts of the northern and the northwestern plains, but they're still cold to be dealt with as we work into early March. As we transition into the first several days of March, you can see colder air beginning to expand again across the eastern part of the country. Parts of the northeast could be well below normal for a time the first 5 days of March, but the west stays a little bit warmer. So if you're in the plains, it stays at least a little more spring-like, while the eastern third, eastern half of the country stays colder than normal. Now, what you will notice as we close out the first week of March, note how the cold air starts to expand a little bit. It doesn't necessarily get more intense. I don't necessarily see any kind of an extreme type of cold event like what we've had over the past week, but I do think that we can expand some of the colder than normal temperatures again late the first week of March into the second week of March, back a little bit further north into the west. And I think that starts off what will eventually be a pattern transition to a colder west type of pattern and a warmer east type of pattern mid to late March. But it's going to take some time, and as that transition happens, we'll see an uptick in storm activity again, and we'll likely see maybe additional winter storms, maybe some severe weather as well. If we take a look at the precipitation trends again, guys, next 5 to 10 days, relatively dry, starts to get a little bit more active here as we get to the back half of the week 2 time frame. You can see that in here. And again, this is when we should start to pick up more rain and storm opportunities, maybe additional winter storm threats across parts of the Midwest, Central Plains. I still think that there's some winter left into the tank as we go into that first week of March. Beyond that, guys, taking a look at the pattern progression, here's a look at some of our top analogs as we go through our weeks 3 and 4 time frames. So this is March 7th to 20th. Not a super strong cold signal, not a super strong warm signal, but I like what this signal indicates. It would generally indicate that the week 3 time frame is a little bit colder. I wouldn't be shocked if this area in general is colder as we go through the week 3 time frame, out through the 10th to the 13th of the month or so, but the end of the period is warmer. And I would expect that the warmer conditions, I'm going to change the color here, would be through this area in here. I think that this area starts to get warmer than normal kind of the 14th to the 20th of the month, let's say the 3rd week of March and beyond. The transition will start, I believe, between the 10th and the 15th of March. And so it's between the 10th and the 15th that we start to see a transition from a generally colder pattern to one that starts to get a little bit warmer. As we transition, we're probably going to have a couple of big storm systems. We'll probably see some severe weather opportunities pick up as well, which I know we mentioned earlier this week. If you take a look at some of the data, we've got support from the data from this as well. Here's day 15 to 20 out through the 11th of the month. You can see generally a colder signal for much of the US, but especially the Midwest and the Great Lakes. As we go through time, note how the core of the cold air slowly pushes back to the west. So this is our 10th to 15th time frame. We start to transition. The colder air slowly starts to pull back west. We start to get some warmer air to develop on the Gulf and the East Coast. And then as we work towards the 15th to the 20th or so, generally you're looking at a warmer than normal pattern south and east, a colder than normal pattern north and west. And so again, that mid-March timeframe, we see a transition start to happen, and all of the data indicates this. You take a look at the CFS, it warms things up here, guys, after the second week of the month. So does the EPS, we showed that, and the GEFS as well. All of them keep some colder air to the north, though, and so if you're looking for more spring-like conditions to hang around across the plains, I think that may be more challenging. Going to have a nice warm up to end February and to start March, but I think the colder than normal air returns to the north the further into mid-March that we go. Breaking it down a little bit further, some of our pattern drivers, our Southern Oscillation Index, that's just the difference between pressure in Darwin and Tahiti. It's a colder signal east all the way out through the 10th of the month. We look at another pattern driver, and the AAM, our global winds, it would suggest the warmer signal starts to appear in the east by March 13th and probably lingers for a good part of the month. And so these are in line with the colder start, the warmer transition for the eastern part of the country as we go throughout the month of March. We take a look at this from an upper level setup. You can see south and east, cold. That's a cold signal to start out March. And then for mid-March and beyond, we warm things up in the eastern part of the country. In terms of precipitation, we showed the temperature analogs. Here's what those look like for precipitation. Top two analogs here, guys, right now, just as reference, 2011 and 2008. 2011 is one that's continued to come up pretty consistently. Big severe weather year. I think that we start to see a little bit of that as well. We'll talk about that to end this video. But here's a look at what it would indicate, and it matches pretty well what our outlook was on Tuesday in terms of this area in here being pretty active. Numerous storm systems through here, heavy rain events, potential severe weather across the deep south, the Tennessee Valley, as we go towards the middle to latter part of this time frame. Not quite as active in the western and the southern plains. This is an area that can be a little bit drier, perhaps, but I do think that we start to pick up the northern storm track again, so it could offer up some rain and snow opportunities for parts of the northern plains. Taking a look at data, we've got support for it. The EPS looks very similar to these analogs. I would say pretty close as a whole. Take a look at the CFS, shows a very similar idea as well. Kind of a wetter west, wetter east, a little bit drier in the middle. And the GEFS, while it's drier north, it still has this storm track signal in the Pac Northwest and in the Ohio and the Tennessee Valley and into the Northeast. And with all that in mind, here's our outlook. And again, I think that the cold is a little bit more widespread to start this period, gradually warming up with time. That 10th to 15th is probably the most volatile time frame. Some ups and downs in there, some bigger storm systems in there, maybe snow, maybe severe weather, snow to the north, severe weather to the south. That would not shock me at all as we go throughout this period. And again, in that maps tab in clarity, we've highlighted both the snow threats ahead and the severe weather threats as we go over the next couple of weeks. In terms of precipitation, guys, again, it's active, and you can see where the precipitation sets up. It's right in this gradient of the colder air in the Midwest, warmer air in the south, into the east, much above normal precip in the Northeast, guys. And again, a little bit drier in the central and the western plains. Now, I don't think it's bone dry. But I do think that you're kind of split in terms of the better moisture north and southeast of you. One last thing before we go. The CFS is starting to pick up on the severe weather idea by the second week of March and beyond. You can kind of see here it starts here first. I think with time it can probably surge a little bit further to the north, but the signal is starting to show up. I still think mid-March, guys, beyond the 10th especially, I think in that 10 to 15th time frame, that's probably when it starts. maybe even gets a little bit more aggressive the third week of the month. But I think mid-month, severe weather opportunity is going to be on the rise. So start to make your plans for that now if severe weather impacts your operations, because I do think that some of these areas will transition from record-breaking cold right now to spring and severe weather relatively quickly by the middle part of March. In terms of the rest of the March forecast, guys, we go back over to the Clarity platform. I'll pop this up for you all, and we'll take a look at the latest March outlook. I don't really have a big change in this type of idea as things stand right now, given the progression that I see. Again, the east starts out a little bit colder, but I do think we trend warmer with time, mid to late month. So this is how things average out. But there will be some volatility in here. There will be some ups and downs that we'll deal with. But I think when all is said and done, the colder air more consistently, mid to late month, ends up across the northern and the western part of the country. Guys, that's all I have for today's forecast. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out. Have a great rest of your day.